The bustling cafe was filled with students engrossed in books and having conversations while eating. She walked in feeling a bit overwhelmed by the lively atmosphere. Her eyes scanned for the familiar face among the students. Her eyes lit up seeing him. She tightened the grip around the lunchbox and made her way towards him. 𝐿𝐿, she tapped the table as he was scrolling through his phone with strained expressions. Pancakes. She kept the lunchbox and turned around to leave, as she knew, as always, he would tell her, "Stop this nonsense and let me be." "Why stop?" She stopped and turned towards him. "Please don't throw it. You shouldn't waste food," she said in one go and looked at him. 𝐿𝐿 was staring at her intently. Her grey eyes attracted him the most, which was full of innocence. He stepped closer and held her hands gently. Wine's eyes widened as he don't even spare a glance at her. "I won't throw it." He tucked the hair strand behind her ear, taking her by surprise. Wine felt her heartbeat rising while her cheeks flushed red. She looked around at the students as some of them had fixed their gaze on them. She swiftly turned around to leave, but 𝐿𝐿 held her. "I'm not done yet." She looked at him, but her eyes widened seeing him getting on one knee with a smile. But she couldn't notice the hollowness in his smile. With a lump in his throat, he spoke. "I have been wanting to tell you something for a while now. You mean the world to me. I really love you. Every time I see you, my heart skips a beat. Will you be mine?" His words were filled with sincerity and love. Wine's heart swelled with hope. She couldn't believe her ears. 𝐿𝐿 squeezed her hand. She smiled widely and nodded. "Yes, I would love to be with you." Her voice filled with joy and excitement. She was nervous, but at the same time she felt overwhelmed by happiness. As she placed her hand on 𝐿𝐿's, he yanked it and stood while laughing, making her confused. The cafe erupted with laughter. Her smile faded. She looked around. The students were surrounded by them while laughing. "Stupid girl, you thought I would fall for you. Can you imagine, guys?" She believed it. He turned towards the students, still laughing. Tears brimmed in her eyes, blurring her vision. Bullying made her blush. Elena stepped forward with her friends and stood beside him. "Prostitution wasn't enough that you are here to seduce him. Such a shameless girl. How can she roam around?" Still with raised head, Van looked at Elena and tried to blink her tears, but they came out. Everyone were laughing and saying something, but Van couldn't understand a word. She stared at him with disbelief, who was smirking. She turned around, wiping her tears, and made her way out, but stopped. "Thea," she whispered, seeing her. Mrs. Kim passed her an apologetic look and walked towards him. Van stopped for a while, staring at them. "This is what I thought," she muttered, thankful seeing her. "Mom," Mrs. Kim placed a harsh slap on his face. Van walked out, shaking her head. Everyone gasped. Then fixed his gaze on the floor. "That stupid crybaby sent her here." Elena glared at Mrs. Kim, who passed him a death stare and walked out. Van went to the rooftop and sat hugging her knees. She was sobbing silently until she felt a soft tap on her shoulder. "Thea," she said as she looked at her. Mrs. Kim sat beside her and wiped her tears. "I'm sorry, I didn't expect him to be such a jerk," she said in a hoarse voice. "No, Thea, it's not your fault. Why would you apologize?" Wine held her hands. "Stop crying, you deserve much better than him." Wine hugged her. "I'm a fool. I should have understood why he suddenly realized he had strong feelings for me. I must have annoyed him a lot. That's why he did this, to get rid of me," she was saying between sobs. "But humiliating someone is not good either." Mrs. Kim let her cry until Wine felt light. She pulled out. "Maybe he hates me due to the rumors, but I swear, Thea, I know nothing about it. Someone is using my name. I know, Wine, you don't have to explain anything to me. You have grown in my hands. No one knows you better than me. Here, have some water." She passed her the water bottle. "Thea, how did you come there?" "You took longer than usual. I thought my Jackson might have lashed out at you, so I came to check on you." Wine just nodded. The pain in her chest was unbearable. "You didn't have lunch. Class will start soon. Eat something." She took out the lunchbox from the bag she had brought. "You eat, Thea. I don't have an appetite." "You still have work to do," she said in a low tone and held her hands. "I don't want to eat either." "Thea." Wine, don't let anyone's words and actions affect you in any way. Th has humiliated himself, not you. We can't earn respect until we give respect to others. Wine blinked away the tears that brimmed again. She felt a lump in her throat. Time skip. The lunchtime was over. All the students went back to their classes. Elena was happily going towards her classroom when Th stood in her way. I don't love wine. She means nothing to me. I made it clear. Now your turn. Delete her pictures and clear her name. He came straight to the point and spoke coldly. Elena smiled, moving closer to him. If she means nothing to you, then why do you care about her? Elena, stop getting on my nerves. I don't give a shit about her. He muttered with rageful eyes. Then why do you want me to clear her name? You literally want to prove her a prostitute. No girl deserves this, Elena, so you better stop it. I would have done the same for any girl, not only one. Alright, handsome, I promise I'll delete that account including Wine's pictures and clear out her name, she said with a smile and encircled her arms around his neck, while in the meantime, Wine appeared. Elena smirked at her. Stay away from me. He yanked her hands. Wine looked away and walked past them. Th clenched his fist, staring at her retreating figure. You'll apologize for using her name wrongly. Sure, handsome, now that I believe you don't love her, I'll clear her name, she said with a wide smile while Th walked away. 1 week later, since that day, Wine has been avoiding Elena and Th. It's more like Elena has been avoiding her. She doesn't bully her anymore. Wine was glad that her name was cleared and the person apologized. Most of the students were embarrassed for their behavior and apologized to her, while most of them didn't care. It's been 3 days since Th didn't see Wine, which made him anxious. Now he came out of his room searching for Mrs. Kim. Mom, he called her out. She appeared from her room holding broom and mop. Mom, where is Wine? He asked hesitantly. She ignored him and walked past him, but he stood in her way. Mom, until when will you not talk to me? At least listen to me for once. He held her by shoulders. Mrs. Kim passed him a glare. Listen to what? What else is remaining that you're looking for? Wine again. She snapped at him and jerked his hands. Mom, I just did that to save her from Elena. I swear I didn't mean it. Stop it, Th. You and Elena are both the same. Mom, Elena has been spreading rumors about Wine. He told her everything. Mrs. Kim was speechless. Wine is her cousin. How could she do that? She said in a low tone. But again, if Elena's parents can keep her as a maid and Elena can bully her, then she can do anything. Th just nodded. Mom, you must keep it a secret. But you should apologize to Wine. You have hurted her a lot. I know, Mom, but for the time being, let it be. I don't want to risk anything. I'll tell her everything at the right time, he said, thinking deeply. You love Wine, right? Her question caught him off guard. Th rubbed the back of his neck. Well, yes, but you shouldn't let her know. Once I complete my studies, I will take you both away from here. We will live together happily, he said, holding her face. I hope so. She kissed his forehead. Mom, can you please call Wine? I just want to see her. I won't come in front of her. Mrs. Kim kept the broom and mop. I was going to call her anyway. For a few days I have noticed she is muddled in something. She zones out most of the time. I thought of taking her somewhere out. She spoke, going towards Wine's room. She knocked and entered the room but frowned. Wine, she called out her name and opened the washroom door, but she wasn't anywhere. Th, Wine is not there, she said, anxiously coming out. Th frowned. Was she out somewhere? No, Mom, I haven't seen her there. In fact, since morning I have been around. I didn't see her coming out. What? She whispered and went back to her room, while Th also followed her. Mrs. Kim opened her cupboard, which was empty. None of her belongings could be found. Why is this empty, Mom? Did she run away? He asked with a raised heartbeat. Mrs. Kim pursed her lips. She's gone. Where could she go, Mom? She has nowhere to go. Mrs. Kim let out a deep breath and sat on the bed. Could it be Karhan? He took her away. Her voice broke. But Mom, Karhan has been in Elena's father's possession since 10 years. He squared before her. That old bastard must have done something. I won't spare him. He stood furiously, but Mrs. Kim held his hand. Karhan might have escaped him. Elena and her parents are not at home. Mr. Cohn went to the city for some business purpose, while Elena and her mom went somewhere else. This is Karhan. He sat on the floor. But he can't take her away like this. I didn't even apologize to her. How could she leave us like this, Mom? Tears rolled down his cheek. Wine is his sister. He has the right to take her away. You have hurt her enough, Sam. She deserves happiness and freedom. I just hope Mr. Kwon doesn't find her whereabouts and she is happy and safe. She batted her lashes. I'll find her, he said in a determined tone. You will not, Sam. Mr. Kwon killed his brother and made wine and Karhan orphans just for their wealth. He would harm them if he found any of them. Try to forget her, we won't say her name again. She blinked her tears, then stared at her with disbelief. Forget her? Do you mean I should stop breathing? He chuckled bitterly. You can't guess how crazy I have been for her, he mumbled in a low tone. Aren't you hurt? I am. At least she should have told me. I raised her like my own daughter. She's my daughter. Tears streamed down her face. Sam blankly stared at the invisible point. He felt like screaming his lungs out. The pain he felt was unbearable. 6 years later, the office bathed in the soft glow of sunlight. She found herself lost in a sea of memories. The weight of the past pressed heavily on her heart and tears welled up in her eyes, tracing a path down her cheeks. Each tear carried a story, a reminder of joy and pain. Just as she was caught in the whirlwind of emotions, her phone rang, breaking the silence of the room. The sound startled her and she quickly wiped away the tears, hoping to compose herself before answering. With a deep breath, she reached for her phone and answered the call, her voice slightly trembling. Brother, Wine, what happened? Did you cry? He asked as soon as he heard her voice. Wine smiled. No, brother, I didn't. She lied, even knowing she can't fool him. Don't lie to me, I know you cried, and that also because of that bastard Sam. He muttered through clenched jaw. Wine's heart skipped a beat hearing his name after so long. No, brother, it's just I miss Thea. You didn't even let me inform her and kidnapped me out of the blue. I wonder how she has been doing. She composed herself. I didn't want that bastard brother of our father to know about our whereabouts. He still has to pay for it. Besides, try to forget them, they're nowhere. Wine just hummed in response. Anyways, I called you to tell you that 𝐾𝐶 CEO will be coming for the meet. So could you accompany him? I have a meeting with Mr. Reed. I don't know if I can make it. Yeah, sure. When will he come? Maybe in an hour. Lydia will brief you on everything. I hope I arrive on time. Alright. Soon she declined the call while Lydia entered with the file. Time skip. Wine went to the conference room where two figures were already seated. She sat keeping her phone on the table and looked up, giving them a fast look with a smile, but she froze her own face. The face she had left behind, the face she had been running away from, the face she was trying to forget. Him, she thought, while he stared at her intensely, making her nervous under his gaze. They kept staring at each other. Wine tried to read his eyes, but she wasn't so good at reading emotions. He had become more masculine and handsome. Their staring concert got on the hold when Lydia cleared her throat. Wine composed herself. All these years she learned one thing perfectly, and that was controlling her emotions. So what's the agenda for today's meeting, Mr. Hudson? Wine fixed her attention on them, but still she could feel Thane's intense gaze fixed. Well, first we wanted to go over the goals and objectives we have for this project. Then we can dive into the timeline and delivery reports. Sounds good. We have also prepared some ideas and suggestions that I think would enhance the project. They discussed it while Thane's intense gaze now left Wine. Alright, I think we have covered everything for today's meeting. Let's reconvene next week to further discuss the project and finalize our plans. Absolutely, Miss Kwon. We are looking forward to it. They all stood. He stretched out his hand for a handshake. It was nice meeting you. See you next week. They shook hands with a smile. Lydia shook hands with Tham and then with Mr. Hudson. Tham extended his hand towards Wine. It was nice meeting you, Mr. Kim, she said with a forced smile while Tham rubbed his thumb over the back of her hand. Wine tried to release her hand, but Tham didn't let it go. She glanced at Lydia and Mr. Hudson, who walked out. It's been a long time. He released her hand. Indeed, it's been a long time. She spoke coldly and made her way to the door. but 𝐿 held her hand. Didn't think you had the guts to face me again and even touch me, she said through a clenched jaw and released her hand from his grip. You disappeared without a trace, without giving me a chance to explain. She chuckled bitterly. Explain what's there to explain. I know I made a mistake. I regretted it every single moment. Believe me or not, I love you. Van stared at him for a while and let out a laugh. Oh my god, that's so funny. You know what? She poked his chest with her index finger. You're no different from others. Now you'll make 100 excuses. She shook her head with disbelief and turned around to leave, but Tam held her by the elbow and pulled her towards him. Give me a chance to explain. Let's talk about it. His lips grazed her ear, giving her chills. Her breath went uneven, inhaling his cologne. It's not that easy. 6 years of thinking about what went wrong. It's hard to let go of that pain. She pulled away and smiled. At least you haven't forgotten me these years. He held her chin while flustered, looking away. It's not that. She was interrupted by 𝐼𝐻𝐶𝐬𝐴's growl. Stay away from my sister. He punched him on the face, taking him off guard by the sudden attack. Wine gasped inaudibly. Tam touched his nose, which was bleeding. 𝐼𝐻𝐶𝐬𝐴 kicked him on the stomach. If I knew who you were, I wouldn't have let your shadow around my sister. He grabbed him by the collar and threw another punch, but Tam held his fist. I don't want to be violent, so stop it. We can sit and talk. He muttered, staring at him deadly. 𝐼𝐻𝐶𝐬𝐴 opened his mouth to speak, but Wine cut him off. Brother, we don't want to ruin our reputation. Mr. Kim is our guest after all. She held his arm. 𝐼𝐻𝐶𝐬𝐴's gaze softened. He released him and turned towards Wine. Are you okay? She said, looking for any bruises on his face, and hugged him. Tam stared at them with disbelief. I guess I was the one who got hit. He spoke, throwing daggers at 𝐼𝐻𝐶𝐬𝐴. You deserve it, little boy. He shook his head, pulling out Wine, fished out her phone, and called Lydia to bring ice back. What did you say? Little boy, I'm a grown man. Being called little boy wasn't less than a curse to him. 𝐼𝐻𝐶𝐬𝐴 smirked, eyeing him head to toe. Too bad you are still a little boy in front of me, he said with a smile. Okay, fine, brother, leave it. You go and rest. She held 𝐼𝐻𝐶𝐬𝐴's hand and dragged him towards the door. I don't want to collide with you, so don't come again, he said, moving towards the door while Lydia also appeared with the ice pack. Wine took it from her. You're not going to stay with him alone. I'll just give it to him and come. Lydia can do that, or else I won't go away. Lydia stared at them, dumbfounded. Come on, brother, it's not a big deal, she said, and went back to Tam while 𝐼𝐻𝐶𝐬𝐴 and Lydia walked out. Here, Mr. Kim, take this. She forwarded the ice pack. Tam stared at it for a while and walked past her. What is your problem, Tam? She said angrily. Tam stopped hearing his name from her after so long. You're my problem, he said without turning towards her. Wine stood in front of him. Take this, I don't. He interrupted her. Yes, I know you don't want me to ruin your reputation. She let out a sigh and looked away. Come with me, Wine. Mom is not well. What happened to Thea? She asked nervously. See her yourself. He shrugged his shoulders. But I can't go with you. Brother won't let me. I can talk to him if you want. She has seen you as her own daughter, but in the end you just walked away without a word, proving she meant nothing to you. Her eyes brimmed with tears. Don't assume things if you know nothing. She grabbed his collar furiously. Tam was surprised, as she was always an innocent girl. He stared at her grey eyes, which still had the same innocence. Think about it. He moved her hands from his collar and walked out, leaving her. Tears rolled down her eyes. He was the least expected person to show up today. Time skip. Wine entered Tam's lavish mansion. She didn't know what made 𝐼𝐻𝐶𝐬𝐴 agree to let her meet Mrs. Kim, not only letting her meet but also send her by himself. Wine looked at 𝐼𝐻𝐶𝐬𝐴, who was walking beside her. He gave her a tight-lipped smile and held her hand, assuring her. She was drowned in her thoughts, thinking about Mrs. Kim's reaction when Tam's growl grabbed her attention. This is how you work, now wipe it. I want this place clean in 2 minutes. He yelled at a girl who Wine assumed to be the maid, but as the girl tugged the hair strands behind her ear, Wine was shocked. She was none other than Elena. Elena, she whispered, enough for 𝐼𝐻𝐶𝐬𝐴 to hear. 𝐼𝐻𝐶𝐬𝐴 glanced at Wine and stepped forward. I see Miss Arrogant might have known her place by now, he said with a smile. Elena stared at him confusingly. 𝐼𝐻𝐶𝐬𝐴, they helped while Wine's eyes widened, seeing her hypocrite brother who was grinning at him. welled up with tears. Wine opened her mouth to speak, but 𝐼𝐴 interrupted her. Why are you standing there? Come here. Where is Thea? She asked, glancing at him. Come, I will escort you. Wide-mouthed 𝐼𝐴, hypocrite, to which he grinned in response and followed him. Your dad's 40% property is under your name, while 60% is under Wine's name. Wine heard him say. 𝐼𝐴 said something, but it fell deaf to her. Thea opened the door and entered along with them. As Mrs. Kim's weak and fragile figure came into the view, Wine felt her heart clench. She was lying on the bed, her face paler than ever. Momsy, who is here to meet you. He held her hand and sat beside her. Wine went closer with teary eyes. Mrs. Kim opened her eyes slightly. Thea, she barely whispered. Thea stood and gestured 𝐼𝐴 to follow him out while Wine sat beside Mrs. Kim. Wine, you have grown up, she said, trying to sit. Wine helped her sit while tears rolled down her eyes. She hugged Mrs. Kim. I missed you all these years, Thea. Mrs. Kim smiled, patting her back. But you ran away without telling me. You can't imagine how hurt I was. Wine pulled out, shaking her head in denial. I didn't run away. My crack-headed brother kidnapped me. Mrs. Kim smiled weakly. Thea, why are you so sick? Has Thea not been taking care of you? She asked with a frown. He's taking care of me so much that he has neglected himself. Anyways, how have you been? She asked, holding her hands. Pretty good, she said while the door knocked, revealing Elena with a tray of snacks. She hesitantly stepped forward with a lower head. Wine stared at her. She kept the tray on the table and made her way out when Wine's voice stopped her. How are you? Elena turned towards her with a lower head. Fine, she mumbled, biting her lower lip. Wine passed Mrs. Kim a questioning gaze. Thea kept her as a maid. She stared at Elena blankly. Wine frowned. Why and where are uncle and aunt? Elena went closer to Wine and lifted her head. This is what we get for our evil deeds, she whispered while tears rolled down her eyes. She went on her knees before her. I feel ashamed to ask for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it after what I have done to you, but believe me, I regret it. I can't even face myself. She spoke through sobs. Wine swiftly held her by the shoulders. Hey, what are you doing? She said, making her stand. Dad killed your father for his wealth, then snatched all your property from him and sent him to prison. Mom left me because I was useless to her. She sniffed and held her hands. Wine stared at her with disbelief. She looked at Mrs. Kim, who nodded. Wine's heart sank. She thought her uncle just didn't like her dad, but she didn't know he was holding a grudge against him. Dad even sent 𝐼𝐴 abroad and made him hostage. She wiped her tears, releasing Wine's hands. Lastly, Thea loves you a lot from a very long time. Wine looked at her with surprise. I was suspecting him back then. I didn't want him to be with you because I was jealous of you. Mom used to tell me you and your parents were evil. Your parents snatched what was theirs. She filled my heart with hatred for you. I made an account in your name and posted your edited pictures. I wanted to prove you as prostitute. Elena closed her eyes tightly. Then somehow discovered I was behind it and told me to delete it and clear your name. But I kept a condition: only if he proposed to you and humiliated you to make me believe he doesn't love you. One sat on the bed with trembling feet. So much happened and I knew nothing, she murmured. Mrs. Kim pulled her into a hug. Elena poured the water into the glass and passed her. You're not my maid, Elena. You don't have to do it, she said, holding the glass. Elena smiled sadly. I want to make it up to you. I'm sincerely ashamed of my doings, she mumbled. Wine held her hand and stopped. Stop it, Elena. It's been so long. I have forgotten it. You should also forget it. We are sisters after all. Elena hugged her. I wish I could have realized it earlier. It makes me embarrassed all over again. You shouldn't have gone so easy on me, Wine. Wine pulled out and wiped her face. Let's not talk about something that we can't change. Elena nodded with a smile. Mrs. Kim smiled, seeing them. Wine insisted Elena sit with them. The three of them were laughing and talking. They didn't even realize when 𝐼𝐴 and Thea entered. Since when the maids are permitted to sit so frankly, he said in a raised voice, making them flinch. Elena swiftly stood while Wine noticed her shaky hands. 𝐼𝐴 rolled his eyes and walked towards Mrs. Kim. Thea, Mrs. Kim warned him, but he ignored it, glaring Elena. Get lost from here before I lose my shit, he muttered. Elena picked up the tray with shaky hands. Wine stood in front of him. You can't treat her like this. She's not your slave, she said in a serious tone. You know nothing, she's an evil who deserves worse than this. He was still glaring at Elena with hatred. Who are you to decide what she deserves and what not? 𝐿 looked at her with a raised brow. I'll take her with me. Farhan swiftly straightened. No way, I don't have place for trash in my house. When past him a glare, Elena lowered her head in embarrassment. Brother, yes, his eyes softened. Will you keep your poisonous mouth quiet for a while? If you don't agree with me, then I'll move out of your house with Elena. He rolled his eyes. Your father killed our parents, and did you forget what she did to you? He muttered in a cold tone. Man let out a sigh. Brother, her father did that, not her. Yes, I forget what she did because she's ashamed. She wants to make it right. Everyone deserves a second chance. Farhan let out a heavy breath. Everyone does. Man passed him a questioning gaze. He smiled. Remember your words. Everyone deserves a second chance. Well, fine. I will leave. I have a meeting. He stood glancing at his wristwatch. Why stay with me tonight? When he looked at Farhan, he nodded. Relief washed over him. This is what he wanted. It's alright, you can stay as long as you want. Anyway, in a few days we'll be busy shopping. He said in a serious tone. Mind from shopping? Farhan stepped closer to her. My little sister, did you forget your wedding shopping? One stared at him with wide eyes and opened her mouth to speak, but stopped, seeing a hint of mischief in his eyes. Wedding with whom? He was too stunned to speak, while Elena also stared at them with surprise. Actually, I have fixed one's marriage with a friend of mine. Then clenched his fist. The veins in his forehead and neck popped. Wine nervously tucked the hair strand behind her ear. Anyways, I must leave, he said, smirking at him who was staring at Wine. Take care, Wine. He kissed her forehead and bid farewell to Mrs. Kim. Tham followed him out, not forgetting to slam the door behind. Wine let out a sigh and said, Your wedding has been fixed? She asked nervously. Mrs. Kim also passed her a questioning gaze. No, I don't know, my brother lied. She rubbed her forehead while Mrs. Kim and Elena let out a sigh of relief. Maybe he wanted to tease him. Wine nodded, biting her lips. At night, Wine did her night routine and was about to lie in bed when the door knocked. She made her way to the door and opened it. Tham, she said, looking at his bruised face. Can I have a few minutes to talk? He said in a serious tone. Wine nodded and let him in. Tham entered and gestured her to close the door. What happened to your face? She asked, staring at him. That's not important. I want to tell you about. Wine interrupted him. About past. You didn't mean to humiliate me like that. That was because of Elena, right? He nodded, fixing his gaze on her. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hurt you. Can you forgive me? He said in a low tone. Wine just stared at him blankly. I can kneel and apologize in front of everyone. He said and kneeled before her. Wine's trance broke. Hey, stand up. Is it kneeling day today? She held him by shoulders and tried to make him stand, but he was way too strong. Tham held her hands. I'm sorry, I didn't have any other option. I was scared and weak. Wine cried before him. I won't say I have forgotten it or it's okay because it wasn't okay. You have no idea how badly it hurt me. He placed her hand on his cheek and rubbed his swollen cheek over her palm. Since childhood, I trusted you the most. I still remember when you were trying hard to comfort me and make me laugh while I was crying for brother. You were my savior in every aspect. I was crazy for you since then. I didn't expect that humiliation from you. It broke me to the core. Still, it wasn't entirely your fault. She said in a low tone. Tham kissed her palm. I'm sorry, I swear I'll make it up to you, he whispered. Wine nodded with a smile. Now tell me what happened, she asked, caressing his bruised lips. Just got into a fight with your stupid brother. He shook his head. Did you hit him? Of course I did. He scared the shit out of me. For a moment I believed it. Wine shook her head in disbelief. Do you still have feelings for me? He asked hesitantly. I thought it would fade with the time being, but it didn't. She lowered her gaze. Wine, you mean the world to me. I don't want to imagine my life without you anymore. I want to quote you. He pulled her closer, holding her by the waist. Wine smiled and wrapped her arms around his neck, snuggling into his chest. Time skip. The lake glistened under the moon's soft glow. Its tranquil water reflecting the shimmering night. The sound of gentle waves lapping against the shore adds to the soothing atmosphere. Wine was looking around at the beautiful view. This is so beautiful, Tham, she said in a state of dream. Then smiled he said, staring at their intertwined fingers. But you could have brought me here earlier. It's late and brother is calling me, she said, glancing at her phone which was beeping. Tham took her phone, declining 𝐼𝐴's call, and sent him a message. Now he won't call, he said in a soft tone, and shoved her phone into his pockets. Ryan smiled and fixed her gaze on the lake and stepped away from Tham. They stood in silence until Tham spoke. I have a surprise for you, he whispered in her ear, and back hugged her. Ryan leaned on his chest. What surprise? She also whispered, placing her hand on his. Here it is. As he said, the sky lightened up with vibrant fireworks spelling out happy birthday, love. Ryan gasped, placing her hand on her mouth. She turned towards him. You remembered, he nodded with a smile, glancing at his wristwatch where it was sharp 12 a.m. She turned towards the fireworks which didn't stop. After a good 10 minutes, the fireworks came to an end. Are you happy? He asked from behind. Ryan nodded, giving him a fast look. There's something else. Ryan turned towards him with a confused look. Look there. He pointed at the sky. Ryan's eyes widened, seeing the drones which were almost out of count. It spelled out, marry me. Ryan's eyes glistened with tears. It felt like a dream. She turned towards him where he went on one knee holding the ring. Will you marry me? He asked with a smile. Ryan blinked her eyes several times, thinking it might be a dream, but it wasn't. He passed her a questioning look. Ryan nodded. Yes, she barely whispered, but Tham heard it. She stretched out her hand and slid the ring into her finger and stood. He wiped her tears, which were streaming non-stop. Why are you crying? Stop crying. He kissed her eyes. I don't want to see tears in these beautiful eyes. I don't know, I'm just too happy, she said, resting her forehead against his chest. Tham tilted her head upward. I said stop crying. She sniffed, wiping her tears, but they kept coming. Tham stared at her for a while. He leaned for her and captured her quivering lips with his own. Ryan closed her eyes, wrapping her arms around his neck. She melted into the kiss. Tham pulled her even closer, deepening the kiss until an annoying voice ruined their moment. Kim bastard, Tham, why would you bring my sister here? He stopped, seeing them with wide eyes. Ryan flinched and pulled out while Tham muttered a curse. You're such a bad influence on my innocent sister. I got to keep you away from her. Ryan's cheeks flushed. She pressed her face against Tham's chest. That's what couples do, old single men like you can't understand, he said with a smile, tightening his grip around Ryan. Why did I even send him the location? He muttered. Whom did you said old? He passed him a glare. Hey Ryan, move away from him. He came towards them. Ryan looked at him and shook her head in denial, clinging further onto Tham. Traitor. Well, you can't separate us. I'll marry her soon. He held Ryan's hand, pointing at the ring finger. Ryan smiled widely. Tham lifted her in his arms. Yes, you just ruined our moment. I'm taking her home. 𝐼𝐴 smiled, seeing the joy visible on Ryan's face. Tham walked past him. I still have a surprise for your birthday, Ryan. Besides, I wanted you to meet my fiancé. Ryan looked at him with wide eyes over Tham's shoulder. You got engaged and didn't even tell me, she almost screamed. Let go of me, Tham. She wiggled in his grip. Tham whispered something to her. Ryan passed 𝐼𝐴 a dead stare and looked away. 𝐼𝐴 smiled, staring at the retreating figure. He let out a sigh and looked up to the sky.